Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome to my best games of 2022 video. It's been a long time coming since I've been able to do a video like this, I feel at least. You know, for those of you who have been following me for a very long time, you know that back in like 2013, 2014, around there, I used to do my own video game awards show, and basically what I would do, I was in high school at the time that I would even record these videos. During winter break, I would spend the almost entirety of the 2-3 weeks or whatever it was of basically recording footage, editing footage together, and putting together this extremely large, 2 to 3 hour presentation. And it was just a massive undertaking. It took a lot of man hours to get that going. And, I felt like for a very long time that I haven't been able to do a video like this because I've been so far behind on my backlog. And now that I've officially been caught up, it feels great to be able to sit here and actually talk about, what my favorite games of the year were. So this video is going to be sort of a more casual look into what my favorite games of 2022 were. Now, before I used to kind of break these down into categories, but I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sort of take the standout experiences that I feel were honestly worth playing and worth experiencing in 2022. So if you don't see your favorite game or whatever on this list, that doesn't mean I didn't play it, and it doesn't mean necessarily that I didn't enjoy it. It's just that I didn't feel it was one of the more standout experiences for 2022, at least from my perspective, okay? Now, just to add some clarity to all the games that I basically played and had to choose from in my, list of games that I played last year, we're going to go through the game run. So the game run is basically a run through of all of the games that I played last year, just so you guys have a better understanding of sort of the games that I picked from the list and why I chose these particular games. So let's get to that right now. Here is the 2022 game run. Alright, so there you guys have it. Those are all the games that I played in 2022. So now let's talk about the standout experiences that I feel were the must-plays of that year. The first game we're going to start off with is an indie game I played for the PlayStation 5, Sifu. Now, Sifu is this more melee-style combat action game that kind of is a take on sort of the old Kung Fu-style cinema action movies, and I thought that this game was a surprising hit for me. In fact, when I was going into this game, I was not expecting it to be, an experience that I was going to particularly enjoy. I was just kind of going in for a fun story, one that I expected to have some, decent gameplay, and I was fully expecting to go in there sort sort of button mashing my way through the entire experience. But I was honestly very surprised with this game. I thought the quality of the game was fantastic. The game is basically an homage to those classic, action kung fu style movies that were like back in like the 70s and 80s and all that stuff, and takes a lot of cues from those blockbuster action movies and with the level design of what this game offers. And the melee combat was a surprising joy. It was easy to learn, it was easy to get into, but also difficult to master. Like, there was a progression of basically when you were playing the game, you felt that, you were getting more acclimated to the controls and more used to the sort of the combos, and you would figure out sort of what works and what doesn't for your playstyle. I thought the story was really interesting and engaging as well. I liked the characters. The story is simple on its own, but it sort of gets the job moving, and you're going to meet these very interesting, quirky characters who all have a different sort of style to them, and I thought that was really well done and very interesting. And the whole premise of the game is this really kind of cool aging system where basically in typical games where you fail, you keep retrying and retrying until you succeed. Well, in this game, you basically fail and your character ages, and the more you fail, the more quickly he ages. And as you age, you do get stronger, so the game does get slightly easier, but it does offset that by basically blocking off additional upgrades and things that you can do for your character. And so as you're basically aging and you're doing more damage, you start actually limiting yourself in terms of the abilities that your character can do. And basically, if you fail to a certain extent, you have to restart the entire level up to that point. However, if you succeed a level and get to a certain age, it does save your age to where you were at that level. So it's this very fine balance that I thought was really interesting, because it introduces a tactical, gameplay loop that you kind of weren't expecting with the game. And I think that it is a game that is, again, sort of easy to get into. It's a basic game where you kind of understand the basic controls and there is combos, but also a game that is difficult to master, and each boss will challenge you to approach it in different ways. So I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a surprise hit, and I played it on the PS5. I think at this point it's been ported to the Xbox family of systems, and if you haven't played it yet, it's even on last gen as well. It's definitely worth a shot. I had a good time playing this one. Alright, next up we have Cyberpunk 2077 for the PlayStation 5. Now, I know this game came out a couple years ago, but I've been personally waiting for a next-gen update for this game because I wanted to play this game basically with all the graphical niceties. It launched in the poor state, and I'm not going to make excuses for the state that the game launched in. It was borderline criminal and unethical and all that stuff. And, say what you will about how difficult game development is and, the launch state of games, but when you purchase something, you are entitled to a functional product, and this was barely functional, basically, when it came out. So I understand people's frustrations with that, and in my review I touched upon this, that in no way am I excusing that, but I can only talk about my own personal experience playing this game. And after waiting 2 years, essentially waiting a complete 10 years before playing this game, because I watched the original trailer, when it came out in 2012, I was so excited, and I knew CDPR basically from playing The Witcher 2, during that same time, so I knew of them. A lot of people sort of, became fans of them after The Witcher 3. But going into this game, just the premise of it really excited me, and I couldn't wait to get into it. But I waited an additional 2 years for them to basically fix the game and, of course, support the new generation of consoles at the time. And honestly, I feel like on a visual level, the game experience on PS5, the version that I played, was fairly comparable to the maxed out experience. And I've seen the game maxed out on PC. It's just a mind-blowing technical showcase, unlike anything I've ever seen before in terms of graphical fidelity. It's mind-blowing what the developers actually put together for the game world of Cyberpunk. But I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the characters, the world, all of the great qualities that make a CDPR game, the great side missions, the very interesting, world, and all the different systems in place are present in this game. And yes, the quality of the experience should have been better, absolutely, but I had a great time playing Cyberpunk 2077 with the patch out now. Now it's been an official year since I've last played the game, or since that patch basically came out. So you can basically play the game. I'm sure it's a lot better, more cleaned up than the time that I played it. And there were still bugs that I ran into during my playthrough of the game. But we have the first expansion coming out. And I really hope that, they do have another opportunity to make another Cyberpunk game, because I think the potential for what they could do with a world and just the incredible depth and detail and density. And there were things that were, you know, kind of promised that were missing in this game from the original vision. Just to have an opportunity to put those sort of back into another sequel just excites me even more. So despite the issues, yes, I waited this long to play Cyberpunk 2077. It's not technically a 2022 game, I understand that, but I did play it this year, having it being released on the new generation of systems, and it did not disappoint. So I had a good time with this game, but I really am excited for just hopefully CDPR gets another chance to make a sequel to this. And, you know, I think that is even more potentially exciting to put all this stuff that they couldn't do in this game in that one, hopefully. But yeah, this needed to be on the list, definitely. All right, next up we have Elden Ring. Now, this game won Game of the Year over at the Game Awards, which I was at last month. You know, it's very interesting because a lot of people, I feel, the naysayers or the people who didn't connect necessarily with the game, a lot of people like to criticize this game and say it's just an open world Souls game. Now, on the surface, you know, they may be right. They did take the Dark Souls formula and put it in an open world container. But what's impressive about this game is not necessarily that they just made it Dark Souls with an open world. It's the fact that they made their very first open world game. And every single thing in that world is interesting. It is artistically beautiful. It is just out of this world insanity. The scope of this game is so massive that I was shocked dozens of times playing this game. Just when you think you get to the edge of the world, the game starts zooming out and it just becomes so massive. It's huge. It's just insane how much the developers poured into crafting the world of this. But what's even more impressive, because, you know, it's one thing to create an open world, right? We've seen a lot of games do this. They create an open world for their game, they put their game in there, and all of a sudden you have the same game that you played 8 years ago, but now it takes 40 hours instead of 15, and the majority of those hours are filled with uninteresting, boring slogfest approach to missions. In Elden Ring, it's the complete opposite. It is one of the most impressive uses to an open world that I've seen ever done in a video game before. And the fact that they were able to create their first open world from nothing, you know, they basically started from complete scratch. And they took elements from all the games that they created in the past, everything that made those games great. They put it into the world, and then everything is interesting. They decided to, you know, forego the hand-holding. There's no objective markers in this game. However, there is a general direction to which the game points you. And you really have to understand how the Souls formula worked prior to really appreciate what they put into this game, because when you got to a certain point where you're fighting a boss in, like, let's say Dark Souls or Bloodborne or any of those games, you know, if you couldn't defeat the boss, you hit a brick wall. You couldn't proceed forward. This game, it completely alleviates that frustration, because you might, you know, have difficulties fighting that boss, but you can just turn around and go the other way. Or you can find optional ways to go around the boss and completely ignore him entirely. It's this approach to the game's world and design that I feel just makes this game such a step above any of the other open world games that I played, especially this year and the years prior. It's a useful approach to game design, and it helps just bring this game, I feel, you know, into uncharted territory where it just never had been before. And the fact that they just succeeded on that and did it so well, it is perhaps the most impressive thing. I think the best thing I can say about Elden Ring is that it's the perfection of the genre itself. It makes complete sense to me now that From Software's next IP is Armored Core, because what more could they do with the Souls-like formula? They're the ones who arguably started the entire, you know, genre of game, this whole subset genre of games. They basically started it from scratch, and with Elden Ring, in my opinion, they perfected it. You can't really do anything else to this game besides just make a larger world, which at that point, you know, it loses the innovation. It loses that spark of what made this game so special. So, man, I think From Software they basically perfected the entire genre that they set out and created from the beginning with Demon Souls. And Elden Ring is a super impressive game. Yeah, it's not so heavy on the narrative. You won't really understand what's going on, but if you've been on the fence or ever wanted to try a game of this style, I can say with confidence that Elden Ring is the most accessible, not because it's the easiest, and it definitely has some difficult moments, but because it lets you play at your own pace, and there is an insane amount of stuff to do. Like it's just mind-boggling just how much there is in this game. It completely just I have no words at times. I remember playing this game, and every single time I thought I was at the end, the map just opened up and there was so much more to explore. And my full complete from start to finish playthrough, and I didn't even do everything in the game, was 93 hours. Just absolutely insane, and definitely I feel deserves to be on one of the best, games of the year list. And honestly, I have no issue with this winning, game of the year at all for anyone. It's a triumphant approach to the genre, an incredible game from start to finish, and it's just, like I said, the perfection of the genre itself. Even if the game doesn't appeal to you, you have to appreciate the developers starting from nothing and really just creating this incredible experiences that keeps you just enthralled and interested the entire way through. And no part of it does it ever get boring, does it ever get repetitive. You're just on this journey, and it's like this substantial epic. It's just insane. So definitely had to put it on here. Absolutely one of the most standout experiences, and I can absolutely 100% understand and agree with this being anyone's personal game of the year. All right, next up we have LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Now, this is a complete remake of all of the classic LEGO Star Wars games with the introduction, of course, of the Disney trilogy. You have 9 games based off of these films, I should say, within this one package. And this just needed to be on here because, I played the very original LEGO Star Wars. I was going into this game really just for the nostalgia, right? And just seeing what they did, recreating all these games and on all these experiences, basically, with the visuals, like the level of fidelity in this game is absolutely insane. The Legos themselves look so accurate, so realistic at times. I mean, they got everything down to the textures, to the little dents and scratches on the characters, the stickers where their faces are. All of that is so beautifully replicated and done in a gorgeous 4K 60 FPS with HDR presentation on the new generation of systems. I'm completely blown away by this. This is a complete throwback, as well as I think a next generation leap for the LEGO franchise in particular. And it was so great to play this game. I played through all 9 games myself. I even tried to game co-op, which has local couch co-op. And it's just, this game had me grinning from ear to ear the entire way through. Even all the jokes, the corny jokes and stuff, even still kind of stuck with me. I felt that this was a great presentation that really focuses on reminiscing about the past LEGO games, as well as kind of looking for the future. I'm not really a fan of all the films that are included in this collection, but each of the games are just well done. It faithfully recreates all the memorable experiences from all of the movies, and it's done so with a production level that I feel is extremely high and very substantial and just so well done. So this definitely needed to be on here, the LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga collection. It's fantastic, and if you have a new generation of systems, the graphics are mind-blowing at times, and just a fantastic presentation, a fantastic experience, really, from start to end. Alright, next up is a bit of a surprise for me, Sniper Elite 5. Now, why is this game on this list? I played basically the vast majority of Sniper Elite games. I played all of them except the very first one. But I feel like with Sniper Elite 5, they moved the franchise forward in a way that I didn't expect. In fact, I was almost ready to skip on this game because it's the same exact thing, just in a different country. And I was like, okay, listen, it's going to be another 6 to 8 hour experience. You're going to be stealthing through some areas and just sniping away and just, doing the same thing that you normally do. Well, with this game, what they basically did is they upgraded the gameplay. Sniper Elite 5 is more like Metal Gear than any of the previous Sniper Elite games that I played. In fact, if you played Metal Gear Solid 5, a lot of the same structure and approach to basically how that game does with its stealth and its planning is basically a part of this game, Sniper Elite 5. Not only is the location gorgeous as well. I mean, France is just fantastic for the game. Beautiful amount of colors. The graphics are also outstanding. Gorgeous HDR presentation. You get 60 FPS on the new generation of systems with what looks like a 4K resolution at times. The game is just well optimized. It runs well and looks great, and it's just a joy to play through. In fact, my entire playthrough of this game lasted upwards of almost 20 hours long, which was the longest of any of the previous Sniper Elite games that I played. And just to see their vision for what, you know, a new generation or I guess a new entry in this franchise would be, I was really surprised that they were basically taking this into a more tactical espionage action style game rather than just a simple, you know, stay back, stealth only, and that's all you basically can do. I mean, you can basically play this game like a third-person cover shooter now, and the controls feel great. The animations are solid, the level design is fantastic and allows for both exploration and variety in how you approach the levels. I really feel that this is the best in the franchise, honestly. And I'm really looking forward to what they do with the 6th game. I'm sure they're going to continue on with basically this franchise. I would love to see a game in this style take place in, like, you know, World War II style Japan. I think would be really, really cool. So there's a lot of locations that they can choose from, but I feel like Sniper Elite 5 was a surprise hit. If you never played the franchise before, this is the most innovative of them, but it does so much more with its gameplay front. And for longtime fans as newcomers alike, I feel this game is going to really resonate with a lot of people. So this was a great experience, and one of the standout ones I had to say for 2022, and I'm glad I played it. Alright, next up we have Stray. I had to put this on here. This is a game that I was waiting for years to actually come out, and at one point I was even betting was going to be canceled at some point, because very rarely do we have games like this actually come out which are creatively interesting, made by a small team. But I was really happy to see that Stray did not meet that same fate, and this game actually came out and is fantastic as well. So, you know, more so than just being a very interesting 3D platformer, this game has a very interesting world. And yes, the perspective is the cat, and that's sort of the gimmick and stuff like that. But, you know, this game has really interesting puzzles. It's got really interesting levels. And again, exactly where it takes place and everything like that, it almost hooks you immediately with its gorgeous soundtrack. One of the best soundtracks for any game, in my opinion, that released this year. And it's just filled with, you know, a beautiful presentation on PS5. The graphics are fantastic, that just really place you in the world, and it's just such an interesting take on this more analog style futuristic city. It's a game that creatively really captures your imagination, and I think opens your eyes to the potential of what video games can really bring you outside of just being these cool action style blockbusters. And I feel like this definitely had to be on one of the best games of the year list. It was a great experience from start to finish. It's not terribly long, but the time that you spend playing it is thoroughly enjoyable from start to finish, and I really honestly wanted more. I don't know what's next for the studio, but I really hope that whatever they do, it's just as interesting, just as fun, quirky, and cute, and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm just really happy to see that this game actually came out and that we have this experience, and that it has a physical disc release as well. This too I was not really expecting, but it's great to actually have this game on retail disc with all the cool goodies and stuff that it comes with. So awesome to see this game you know, do so well and come out, and I can't wait for what the developers do next. Next up, we have A Plague Tale Requiem, the sequel to one of my favorite games that came out in 2019, A Plague Tale Innocence. Now, Requiem just takes this franchise to new heights. It's not just about it being a larger game with more substantial levels and you know, a longer story. This game is really just darker on a tonal level. I mean, the storytelling itself has some really surprisingly dark and just horrific moments at times. And the first game definitely had those, but it was sort of layered, you know, very elegantly with the more somber, more emotional, you know, softer moments of the game. And in this game, it's just like one thing after the other. It has a lot of shocking moments, and the end of this game is a real tearjerker, but just kind of pushes the franchise to unprecedented levels that I was not really expecting. I feel that for a narrative storytelling experience, this is definitely one of the best games to come out in the year. In fact, if you love storytelling like myself, you're going to absolutely love what Asobo has done here in terms of creating a sequel. Again, it's much more of a darker story story, but it's also, in my opinion, much more well written as well. And these characters have, they're now much more mature. Their personalities are really coming into the fold. Amicia herself, your main character, really starts taking ownership and responsibility a lot more. She's not really a victim anymore like she was in the first game. She's actually kind of seeing herself being almost eased into the darkness and kind of catching herself by surprise with sort of the stuff that she's doing. And so it's really kind of the mental breakdown of this character that's just so fascinating as well as horrific to watch, to such a young person. But man, I was just floored from like beginning to end with this game. It not only met all of my expectations but exceeded them far and beyond. And if you love the first game like I did, this is very much still a stealth focused game, so you're not going to have so much variety in terms of how you approach the different levels, but you do have more tools at your disposal. Amicia herself is a little bit more capable than she was in the first game, but the production values are just off the charts insane, and I can't wait for hopefully a next a Plague Tale game, and judging by that ending, they're going to be taking it into a direction that's just, again, I was not even expecting. So yeah, hopefully we do get that at some point. But man, this was such a treat. Definitely one of the standout experiences, and if you love storytelling in video games, you definitely do not want to miss this. It's a great adventure. Alright, next up we have God of War Ragnarok. Now, I have to put this on there. Now, for me, this is quite, surprising because I was never into the previous God of War games, just never really cared for the gameplay. And I know everyone loved, God of War 3 and the original, other two games as well, but just for me, I didn't care for that sort of hack and slash gameplay, and I tried playing them multiple times. When God of War 2018 came out forever, I was just floored. From beginning to end, I felt the experience was transformative. And you guys know I gave that game my personal best game of the generation during my, must-play titles for the 8th generation of gaming. So how does the sequel fare up? Because you have some, huge shoes to fill. Not only do you exceed the expectations of fans, but for someone like me who wasn't even into those games, you pulled me in and create such an emotional, impactful journey that I consider it better than any of the games that I played out in the 8th generation of gaming. How do you follow up a sequel to that? Well, God of War Ragnarok is basically a refinement in terms of the gameplay, but I was really surprised at just how well this story does. It basically goes in with complete confidence. It knows exactly what it's doing. It knows exactly what it needs to do. And it hits basically all the points that, for me, I was really looking for in a sequel. Perhaps, on a criticism level, I do think it was slightly less focused. What I mean by that is there's a lot of content in this game, and there's a lot of stuff happening in the story in this game that is so much greater on a much more wider scale than, the first God of War 2018 ever was. But, for me, people were really looking for a solid conclusion to what they did in 2018, and this just leaves the series and the characters in such an interesting and, again, surprising state that I just wasn't really expecting them to ever go in. And it works. It's an incredible journey from start to finish. It basically has everything that made the 2018 game great, with some refinements and a more visceral, more agile approach to its combat that is a lot more fun and engaging to play, a lot more variety there. I think God of War 2018 is a fantastic game. There's really nothing else to say about this. I think Sony Santa Monica once again outdid themselves. And, not only did they just create a great game, but they also gave fans exactly what they wanted and, told the story that they wanted to tell. I think this is a great place for God of War to end, either permanently, or if they want to create another game with another different timeline or something, like that in the future would be quite interesting. But it's just a very, very interesting game, and I had a great time playing it, from start to finish. It definitely is a worthy sequel in more ways than just the name. And I just feel they did a fantastic job just creating, again, a quality experience. And absolutely, I could see why people butt heads with this game and Elden Ring as being their personal game of the year, because both of these games are absolutely fantastic. But it's just surprising and just really awesome to see the developers just really hit the nail on the head with this one. So if you haven't played Ragnarok or waiting for it for whatever reason, This game is incredible from start to finish, and again, just as fantastic and just as engaging as 2018 ever was. Alright, we're coming down to the last two games here. We have Sonic Frontiers. Now, I was surprised to actually find myself having a great time with this game. You know, the game came out and it got sort of lukewarm reviews. Now, the criticisms aside, which I can definitely see, I think that this game can be at times a technical mess. You know, it definitely doesn't have the optimization, the graphical prowess of what you would expect and hope for a next generation Sonic game. But what they do with the gameplay, I feel that they finally created the first really solid 3D Sonic game, at least for me, you know, because the last Sonic game I played was Sonic 2006, which, you know, quite a large gap between that game's release and this one. And basically what they did with Sonic Frontiers here, more so than, again, it just being an open world Sonic game, which a lot of people like to criticize it for, it's about the way it utilizes its world. The worlds are not that large, they're very manageable and easy to explore, and the game basically combines the great 2D elements from, you know, the classic Sonic titles and mixes it in with more 3D style exploration. And I just feel that the game does a great job of basically celebrating the legacy of what makes Sonic so great and why the character is so special, not just for Sega, but for gaming itself. The storytelling is sort of there to help push things along. It's not really the reason why you play this game, but the music is fantastic, and this game takes a lot of inspiration from games like Nier Automata, Death Stranding, as well as the classic Sonic titles, just to create this mashup of a game that just feels like it creatively has an identity and it knows what it is and knows what it needs to be. So I had a great time playing Sonic Frontier, surprisingly. I played it from start to finish, and it took me, you know, around 20 or so hours to actually complete this game from start to finish. I did most of the stuff that I could come across. Again, you guys could always feel free to check my achievements or trophy list. All of my information on my profile is public for that reason, just so you guys have a better understanding of exactly the games that I play and which lengths do I go to actually complete the stuff within those games, because I do feel it's important, you know, to not just play a game for the sake of playing it, but to experience the majority of what the developers really put in there to really understand what the whole entire experience is like. Sonic Frontiers is fantastic though, and if you're a fan of the characters, if you're just looking for a solid platform that sort of takes you back to the classic days, you know, of that era, this is a game that really just transports you to a different time and is just a joy to play. It's fun, and again, it's a celebration of really the character and just the impact that he's had on gaming, which is awesome. So Sonic Frontiers, I feel, definitely has to be on here. It's the best Sonic game in years, literally, and I really hope that, you know, this could be the start of some brand new legacy, some brand new beginning for the character and the franchise in general. And yeah, I'm interested to see what Sega comes up with next. Alright, and the last game that I have here is probably going to be a controversial one depending on the way that people feel about this, but again, you know, this is basically for me, and I can only really talk about my experience, but that is the Callisto Protocol. So right off the bat, I know a lot of people have criticized this game very openly. In fact, I feel this game is sort of the victim of what happens when games are hyped way too much, and just to the point where, you know, they can't possibly ever reach those expectations. You know, we've seen a lot of games, a lot of stuff like that happen with a lot of these games from the past, and I feel like the Callisto Protocol is yet another victim of what happens when just hype gets out of control, because, you know, this is a game that is, from, in my opinion, a different era. This is a game that's a more linear style, more story-focused experience that sort of harkens back to the old 7th generation of consoles, and that was a time period that I personally very much miss. You know, I feel like everything these days has to go open world, and it has to be at least 20 hours long or it's considered short, and games are filled with so much bloatware, so much uninteresting stuff. And, you know, I play all these games today. I played the large open world games like Assassin's Creed, and I will sit there and play the 70-hour experience from beginning to end for these open world Assassin's Creed games, but when it comes down to it, 40 of those 70 hours are basically filled with uninteresting, boring stuff, if not even more of the experience, and you're really only, and the storytelling isn't even that great because it's being drawn out unnecessarily long across this entire experience, and most of the time you're just not doing very interesting things. Now, the Callisto Protocol basically is an extremely story-focused game. Cutscenes are abundant, The gameplay does offer some areas for exploration, but is mostly you following through a straight line or going to your objective. And again, I felt that this game, when you sort of just take a step back and judge it on its own, is a very good first attempt at a new franchise. Now, yes, the developers of these games used to make the Dead Space franchise, and I feel like that it's because they didn't really do themselves, any good service either. They were kind of like hyping it up, saying, oh yeah, Dead Space was a huge inspiration. This is what we learned. And they're kind of, owning the hype themselves. So I don't think the fault was entirely with the players. It was definitely with the way that the team communicated as well, the experience and their experience working on games from the past. But quite honestly, when I take a step back and I just judge the game on itself, a brand new studio created one of the most graphically impressive games. I mean, this game looks lifelike at some points. It's absolutely insane what the developers did in terms of a visual presentation. The sound design is like on another level. This is some of the best sound design I've heard in games. And basically from a technology standpoint, I think it fully utilizes everything that you want in a next generation game experience. And yeah, the storytelling does drop the ball towards the end, admittedly, and I feel like the gameplay is manageable. It definitely has its problems, but, it's not an unplayable experience like many people would have you believe. I mean, I see some of these reviews that people are putting out here for this game, and it's just like people are giving it 2, 3s, 4s out of 10s. I'm like, God, you're saying it's like basically near unplayable, that the quality of the game isn't there? I mean, I didn't run into really any glitches when I was playing this game. There was one bug where I couldn't basically redeem one of my pre-order bonuses, one of my items basically. But that was about it. In terms of the core gameplay from start to finish, it was a very bug-free, very solid experience from a quality perspective. And again, the technology that this game encompasses is just on another level. It's so impressive to just see this game in motion, but also if you have a great sound system, you're going to have a game here that's going to basically give it quite a workout and just going to have you smiling and scared out of your minds. And I do feel that this game has some very tense moments because, people have their criticisms with enemies kind of popping out in front of the camera. That happens from time to time with this experience, but I was on the edge of my seat playing this game the entire way through. I thought it was great. So I don't know. Again, I can only speak about my experience with the game. And yes, I was going in expecting a more action-style third-person shooter, and what this game really is a melee-focused combat game first and foremost. As I said in my review, it's not Dead Space. Don't even think it's anywhere close to Dead Space. It has basically no connection to the way that Dead Space plays, other than some of the graphical elements and the gameplay elements of like things, how the health bar and the HUD is sort of integrated into the game world itself. But other than that, this game kind of stands on its own, and this game makes me very, very excited about what a sequel could possibly do if the developers just had another chance. However, with the abysmal sales that this game sold, it was recently revealed that this game did not do well, did not hit its sales expectations, and the reviews have been rather, I think, again, very overly critical. It's probably not going to happen. We're unfortunately probably never going to get a sequel to this game, and I do hope otherwise, but in an industry where, financial expectations and quotas must be hit, this unfortunately is probably just going to be another victim, one of those kind of one and done type of style games. And I really think the developers were onto something very interesting, just had the potential to create something that was very cool and could have done a really great job had they been given another chance, to make this game into a franchise or something like that. I'm not really sure, but anyway, I had a good time with this game. I wanted to include it on here because, again, I'm not saying the game is perfect. The games on this list, none of them are basically perfect. But this game did capture my imagination. I had a great time playing with it, and I definitely feel that this is one of the more memorable experiences of 2022. And hype aside, I do feel it's important to take a step back at times and just look at a game face value, without any of the hype, without any of the, marketing material or anything, just what does the game have on offer. And I feel that this game, at the very least, you can say it's slightly above average. edge, you know, because it has some of the best graphics, it has some of the best sound design. From a technical perspective, it's just on another level entirely. But, you know, even though the gameplay may not speak to everyone, they have their issues with that. And of course, the storytelling, which I feel really kind of let me down towards the end. Again, it's not perfect, but taking a step back and just looking at it face value, I do feel that this was a very cool experience. And for me, you know, really brought me back to a time period where, you know, games were a lot more simpler, a lot more shorter, but so much more story driven and just, in my opinion, better. They're more memorable during the era of the PS3 and Xbox 360. So that's why I felt it needed to be on this list. There you guys have it. Those are basically my favorite standout experiences for 2022. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, it's been so long since I felt I've been able to do a video like this, and to finally have no backlog whatsoever, to be able to play games sort of around the time that they're released. It's great to be able to sit here and finally do that. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much again just for watching and just for supporting me and having, you know, basically so much patience with just the way that I put out content. It honestly means a lot. And here's to a great 2023. 2023 is looking to be one of the best years in entertainment history, in my opinion. Not just in games, but if you look at the movies coming out, it's just absolutely fantastic. So I think that this is going to be a great year, and definitely a difficult one when we look back on some of the best games that came out. I feel like a lot of games are going to really, you know, stick the landing when it comes to their releases. So here's hoping for a great year for gaming and everything else, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you very much.